Live from the Ken and Valerie Baker studio at WHYY, this is Studio 2.
On Thursday, October 16th, hello, I'm Avi Wolfman-Arndt.
And I'm Kevin McCory in for Cherry Gregg. Show today, Avi, hits close to home, right? We're talking about creativity, human creativity, and what will AI do to it. The tech companies will have you believe that this is going to unleash creativity. More people are going to be able to do more things that they couldn't have before because of this technology. Do you buy that? Is it going to squash creativity into some homogeneous thing that we all just see on our doom scrolling as, they call it the slop, right? So we're going to hash that out today with two great experts, and we want to hear from you. What impact do you think AI will have on human creativity and art? You can call us 888-477-9499 or email studio2@whyy.org. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook live stream, comment in the chat.
And especially would love to hear from you if you're an artist yourself. Like Buggy on YouTube, one of our regulars, is an artist. I'll read Buggy's comment later in the show. But if you're an artist out there, are you seeing folks say, I don't want to do that commission with you anymore. I'm just going to export this to AI. What do you think about AI art? Do you use AI tools in your visual arts or your sonic arts? Very curious about that. 888-477-9499. Again, email studio2@whyy.org. But first, a trio of local news stories. Let's start with something that is hopeful. Kevin, it's genuinely hopeful. As homicide rates continue to fall here in Philadelphia, there's been a huge uptick in the percentage of solved murder cases. According to a story out this morning in the Inquirer, the homicide clearance rate is right around 90% here in Philadelphia. That means for every 10 murders committed in Philly, there have been 9 arrests of people suspected of committing murder. This is a stunning turnaround from just a few years ago when the clearance rate was below 50%. Wow. So why the sudden change? Well, one big reason is that there's fewer murder cases to solve, which means lighter caseloads for detectives. Also means the denominator on this number is just smaller. Technology also possibly playing a big role here as well. There's way more cameras that Philly police have access to now and automatic license plate readers, among other tech upgrades. So lots of potential explanations. But the bottom line is if you kill someone in Philadelphia today, you're more likely to be caught than you were just 3 years ago.
Yeah, really great story and some astounding, views into maybe what it was like in the department just a few years ago. It seemed very dysfunctional. They talked about, being just in the workplace that the detectives were in, just like being crowded and dirty and there being low morale and not even having enough computers for the detectives to use at a time when the murder rate was surging. So you have so many more cases to try to get through, and it's obviously harder to get an answer in one when you're dealing with double the amount that maybe, the experts say you should have. So some real encouraging signs here in the Philadelphia Police Department.
One of the most interesting things to think about with this whole conversation is the role of technology, I think. Back in the day, before there was ubiquitous surveillance, one of the main tools that detectives had was interrogation. And there's all sorts of really horrible stories of where those interrogation tactics went for some detectives.
Sure.
Now, the flip side of that was all this technology surveillance. You don't need to rely on that as much. And they talk about that in the story in the Inquirer. But there's the big brother side of all this. There's cameras everywhere. There's technology surveilling all of us all the time. And how do people feel about that, right? So I think that's where you have the most friction in this story. The implementation and the role of technology. It's made for some wonderful advances. And it also, I think, makes a lot of people very uncomfortable.
And part of that conversation, too, they talked about the interrogation rooms all having cameras now.
Yep.
So part of that, cameras everywhere, everything's being watched. Well, that includes the officers
and the police are wearing cameras.
And making sure
everywhere.
There's more transparency there. Story number 2, top Democrats in Pennsylvania are plotting to run against U.S. Senator John Fetterman in the 2028 primary. So Axios out this morning with a report saying that Reps Brendan Boyle and Chris DeLuzio and former Rep Connor Lamb are eyeing that 2028 primary race, and they're citing multiple political insiders as their source for that information. DeLuzio and Lamb, of course, are Western Pennsylvania people. Boyle is from our region. This shows, the mounting frustration from the left with Fetterman. Some see him as too allied with Trump and conservatives. Just to go back a little bit, you might remember Trump wins the 6-year term in 2022.
Fetterman won a 6-year term.
Oh, I'm sorry, Fetterman. Yeah, and so he beat Connor Lamb. He beat Malcolm Kenyatta. He goes on to win this hotly contested general election against Mehmet Oz. Asked for comment by Axios, Fetterman said, quote, "Enjoy your clickbait," and shared a report from a conservative group showing that he is among the least Trump-aligned Democratic lawmakers.
Well, look, if people are already lining up to primary you in 2028, that tells you everything you need to know. Clear vulnerability for Fetterman, just from a political perspective. There was a recent Quinnipiac poll, and it's unbelievable, Kevin. 33% of Pennsylvania Democrats approve of the job Fetterman is doing. 62% of Pennsylvania Republicans approve of the job Fetterman is doing. And this is almost a complete flip from the same poll a year ago. Well, what's changed? I mean, in many ways, very little has changed, because if you look at Fetterman position by position, his stances on the major issues haven't changed a whole lot. But it goes to show that the way you express yourself, your willingness to stand up to the Trump administration on various things, your vibes go a long way toward dictating how the voting public views you. If Fetterman's approval ratings among Democrats do not get better, it's hard to see him winning a Democratic primary, point blank, which means, does he run as an independent? Does he change party? Does he say goodbye to politics? I mean, those, to me, would be the only paths forward if that number remains as it is. I don't see how you win a primary with that type of approval rating.
Sure, and I guess he will argue, look, I still have the Democratic bona fides on many of the issues that many people care about, while being able to win a statewide general election race, right? And of course, the last Senate race that was won in an open contest was Dave McCormick, who's a Republican. And, Fetterman will go out there and say, I know how to win Trump country, and I still will get enough Democrat votes to win in 2028. But we shall see. That is many years away still.
Yeah, but the fact that people are already talking about this 4 years away, again, tells you everything you need to know about his political vulnerability right now within the Democratic Party. Anyway, story number 3. One of Philadelphia's premier arts venues is undergoing a name change. Not talking about the Philadelphia Art Museum, folks. That's old news. The Mann Center, an outdoor concert venue in Fairmount Park, has now become the Highmark Mann Center for the Performing Arts. This after signing a 12-year naming rights deal with the insurance company Highmark Blue Shield, which is based in Western Pennsylvania, but has recently begun to make some inroads here in our region, hence their interest in this particular deal. And so the Mann, if you didn't know, was founded in 1976, the bicentennial. It was originally called the Robin Hood Dell West. Then it became the Mann, named after Frederick Mann, who was a wealthy industrialist and arts patron. And now it's going to have this hybrid corporate name. So it's sort of a sign of the times, I guess. It used to be Robin Hood Dell. That name was based on just a geographic location. There's a part of Fairmount Park.
Beautiful Dell in
called
the park.
Called the Robin Hood Dell. Then it became Wealthy Guy's name. And now it's Wealthy Guy / corporation's name.
Yeah,
there you go.
You see a pattern there.
It's a bit of a pattern.
From Veterans Stadium to Citizens Bank Park to Lincoln Financial. We went from the Spectrum to, yes.
I mean, look, there's bigger problems in the world, but have names of major venues gotten worse? I would argue yes. Indisputably yes. They're much less about the soul of the place, and of course much more about who is willing to pay for the rights to have the name.
So is there, some old venue names that you're kicking around with, Avi, that you wish would come back?
The Spectrum, for sure. I thought the Spectrum was an amazing name. It evoked color and life. It felt new. And at the time when it opened in the 60s, it really was like a marvel. And I feel like that's one of the best names of a major venue here in Philadelphia that I can recall top of my head. Do you have one you'd like to bring back?
So I was kicking it around, and I got a stump, I guess, for not the sports venues per se, but more of the small indie artistic venues.
Look at this guy.
Look at the show we're doing.
Look at the
today,
creativity
right?
on this guy.
So they don't exist anymore, but the Grape Room in Manayunk, the North Star Bar in Fairmount, I got to shout out the Pontiac on South Street for kids back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, those are names that meant something, Avi. It used to be about the music, man.
Oh, he's so cool. He's so cool. By the way, my favorite venue name in Philadelphia still exists. They still got it. I don't think they'll ever change it, thank God. The best venue name in all Philadelphia is the Palestra.
That's great. Yeah.
So great. Nothing else like it. There's no other place to watch basketball like the Palestra. It has a singular name. It has a singular identity. It has a singular feel. And it just is unique. It's actually unique. God bless the Palestra.
Today on the show, main seg just around the corner, we're talking about AI and the impact it's going to have on human creativity and art. We want to hear from you. What are your thoughts and comments about this? This is a rapidly evolving subject. Give us a call, 888-477-9499 or studio2@whyy.org. And here we are at WHYY's fall membership campaign. Kevin McCory and Avi Wolfman-Arent still here with you, asking proudly for your support for this station. You know, this is how public media works. A couple times a year, we come to you and ask you to become a member, to support the thing that you value, because over time, it's listeners who became members that have made this operation possible. It's made Studio 2 possible. It makes the wonderful people we have on our team and in this building able to serve this community from a mission-driven, nonprofit mindset each and every day. That's worth supporting, and that's why we're proud to ask you for that support. Do it now at whyy.org/radio.
Indeed, whyy.org/radio is where you go to make a pledge. It's a big day here. Big day. We have a very special challenge today from Bruce in Landenberg, PA, a generous WHYY donor. When we receive 280 contributions by 6:30 p.m. today, that's in, about 6 hours, WHYY will receive an additional $5,000 in support for programming and news. So thank you, Bruce. Thank you to everyone who's given today. Looking for 15 gifts this hour to keep us on track. We have one in so far. So you be next, and then you tell a friend. Let's thank some folks who've already given. We've got Amy in Ardmore, Patrick in Doylestown, Jonathan in Yardley, just to name a few. Amy, Patrick, Jonathan, thank you. And thank you to the next person who gives at whyy.org/radio.
It's really important to hit these hourly goals, and especially for us, working on Studio 2 each and every day, we love to see people step up and say, this is something that I care about, and it's part of my habit, and I wouldn't want it to go away, right? Well, we all know what's going on in the media landscape, lots of challenges, lots of complications, and all we can say is if you find a source that you can trust, that you can feel like you're going to get the real conversation through, you're going to be informed, engaged, entertained, please don't take that for granted, because it truly, there's not many things like this out there. We're talking about a mission-driven nonprofit having conversations and engaging our local community each and every day on the most important issues, and doing it in a way that we hope is relatable and interesting and fun. Please don't take that for granted. Make a pledge right now, whyy.org/radio.
Would love to hear from our Studio Tunics out there. If you're a big Studio 2 fan,
you won't stop.
This is your chance to show your support for the show. You can join Susan from Delran, New Jersey. This is, I don't know if this is my favorite comment ever, Kevin, but it's got to be in the top 5%. This is what Susan said. Love the feeling of sanity when listening to broadcasts. You're welcome, Susan. We are supplying the sanity here at WHYY.
You're testing that with the Tunics thing, but go on.
Well, yeah, Well, just a tinge of insanity is not. She's not saying she loves the feeling of sanity. She didn't say it's 100% sanity.
Yeah.
99% is good enough. Thank you, Susan. Why don't you join Susan right now? Go to whyy.org/radio. We have 2 gifts in so far. Looking for 15 this hour.
Yeah, it really only happens when listeners become members. That's what we're about today. That's what we're about in this fall membership campaign. Don't take it for granted, and know that any gift at any amount that you feel comfortable with, that is going to help us towards this goal. That's really going to help us, stay strong and be the thing that we can best be for this community. And remember, it all happens without a paywall. So for those who are less fortunate in this community, they're always going to have access to WHYY, but it is incumbent upon those those of us who can to give. And that's why I'm a member, and many others in this building are members, and we're proud to do so. But it only happens with listener support. So please do it now at WHYY.org/radio. And thank you so much for your support.
You check the flow, gotta let the people know. Truth decay, erosion, seeds that they sow. Corporations controlling, narratives unfolding. Got the masses in a trance, stories they be holding. Independent voices need them amplified. Public media, the key.
And welcome back to Studio 2 here at WHYY. I'm MC Avi Wolfman Arendt.
And I'm Kevin McCory in for Cherry Gregg. So that song you just heard right there was generated by artificial intelligence. I asked the app Sora to make a hip-hop song with fast rapping about the importance of public media. A few seconds later, there it was. Music is just one of the genres facing disruption from AI. The ability to use AI to create photography has been rampant in recent years, and in recent months, the Rubicon has been crossed in terms of AI-generated video and actors. Take this clip from the London-based production company Particle 6. It's completely made with AI actors and introduced the world to the AI character, Tilly Norwood.
But can she cry on Graham Norton?
Of course she can, and it'll be clipped, subtitled, and monetized on TikTok by lunchtime.
We're all going to hell. Got recommissioned, didn't it? 3 seasons and a podcast.
By an AI commissioner, much faster.
But hey, at least it wasn't a reboot.
And that Tilly Norwood character is reportedly now in talks. Now, I'm making this up. This is not The Onion. Reportedly now in talks with real talent agencies. So today on Studio 2, we peel back the layers on AI and creativity. Will this cause irreparable harm to something innate about our humanity? Or is this just one more tech advancement that could help people practice creativity? Well, we have 2 great guests with us this hour to hash it all out. Ziv Epstein is a postdoctoral associate at MIT Schwarzman College of Computing. Ziv, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
And Lindsay Brainard is assistant professor of philosophy at University of Alabama, Birmingham. Go Blazers. Lindsay, thanks for being here.
It's great to be here.
And we want to hear from our listeners. What impact do you think AI will have on human creativity and art? Give us a call, 888-477-9499, or email studio2@whyy.org. If you're watching along on the live stream on YouTube or Facebook, drop your comment in chat.
I teased this comment earlier. Buggy on YouTube says, I'm an artist. It will only end human creativity if we let it. I fully believe that we need to keep fighting back against the normalization of AI-generated art. Make art, be human, fight back. That's Buggy's comment on YouTube. Ziv, before we get into the implications of all this, we need someone to guide us to the bleeding edge right now. I'm asking you to do that. What is possible? Let's look at visual art. What is possible with AI generation right now? How close does it mirror non-AI generated visual art? And how much will all this change likely in the next 5 to 10 years? Hit those 3 points for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've seen kind of recently in the last 5 years is the rise of the kind of quick ability to generate both videos and images. And the video capabilities of these recent models, including something like Sora, represent kind of a big step forward, because before we weren't able to generate those at the kind of reliable rate that we are able to see now. And the kind of key kind of innovation now is both the kind of quick ability to generate things on the fly in the video domain, but also the ability to add personas and characters. You can actually upload, scan your face, and include that. Sora now has this whole kind of TikTok-style social media network surrounding it. So it's also kind of mediating the interaction with these through personalization and the ability for kind of social connection.
And how lifelike or realistic does it look? Because we're on the radio right now. We'll have a clip. We'll play it for people later. But I think for people who haven't messed around with this stuff yet, they sort of don't quite get it. I mean, how close are we to reality here, Ziv?
So, there's always a gap that these AI systems are chasing. We are seeing kind of new levels of fidelity with these models that, can in many cases introduce a lack of discernment between what is real and truthful versus what is synthetic. And ultimately, there's always it's arms race between what are kind of cues and signals that people use to discern truthhood, and those are changing as the technology evolves. So there are indicators, but at the same time, it's an ever evolving kind of arms race of veracity.
So, Lindsay, you're a philosopher, right? So in thinking about this show for me, the thing I kept returning to these two Kurt Vonnegut quotes that I feel like have informed me through a lot of my life. And one is, to practice any art, no matter how well or badly, is a way to make your soul grow. And the other is, this is Kurt Vonnegut saying, Bill Gates said, wait till you see what your computer can become. But it's you who should be doing the becoming, not the damn fool computer. What you can become is the miracle you were born to be through the work that you do. So part of me wants to believe that Vonnegut's right through all of this, that he'll outlast AI and those sentiments will outlast AI. But then part of me feels like the damn fool computer is winning. What do you think?
Yeah, first of all, I love those quotes. I think that they really speak to this kind of existential moment we're having as we confront what these technologies can do. They kind of give us a mirror, as the philosopher Shannon Valor says. We kind of see ourselves in them, and we don't always like what we see in them. And I think part of what's interesting about the emergence of these technologies is that our disgust or our reaction that we have to them helps us get clear on what we really value. I think it's really helping a lot of people realize how much they value authenticity and human creativity, even if the products of the AI generated stuff is better in many ways. And that's kind of an interesting philosophical realization I think many people are having.
Do you think people can really see, if they're just on the stream and they're just scrolling on their phones all day, will they really appreciate the difference in the authenticity? And as these tools get more and more authentic seeming, those lines will be blurred, right?
I think it's a fascinating time to be a philosopher. I'm sort of dying to find out how people will react to this technology. I know one thing people get upset about often is when they are duped. So they think something's genuine, they invest in it in the way that we would invest in a piece of human created art, find out it wasn't generated by a real human artist or author. And I think the reaction we often have to this is, I've been harmed in some way. I invested my time in this project, this appreciation of art that is really supposed to be an exchange between people. And so I think it's going to be hard for people to know what they're engaging with increasingly. And I think people might lose interest in various platforms as a result of it.
So one of the big philosophical questions, Lindsay, is what does this do to human creativity? Does it supercharge it or does it suppress it? I guess maybe give us the play out both scenarios, how either could possibly happen in your view, sort of the suppression timeline, what that looks like, and the supercharging timeline, what that looks like.
Yeah, so I think there's a worry that we can get results that are impressive more quickly with these models. And what that means is that we can satisfy our urge to make an image or write a poem or generate some video without making that many choices that are our own choices. And when we do that, I think we're exercising less creativity, and I think we might sort of unthinkingly abandon a lot of our creative attention and effort if we can get these quick results. And I think that's the kind of suppression worry.
We just take the easy way out. Instead of thinking about how to create something cool, I type in a prompt, get it done, and I move on to making dinner.
Yes, exactly. I will say, even though I'm sort of more worried about the harms to our creative capacities that AI presents, there are some really cool cases in which artists have taken AI technologies and done something really innovative that exploits something about the technology. So the philosopher Anthony Cross talks about work by Sophia Crespo, this piece called Critically Extant that I recommend checking out. And in this piece, she uses the limited availability of photos of endangered species to generate images that are flawed in kind of funny ways because it shows that the model hasn't been able to train on them. So I think people are having creative ideas about how to show interesting things using these models. So I don't think it's all bad.
Well, that's my question for you now, Ziv. Like, people at one point thought photography might kill painting, but a lot of people, I'm not an expert in this, but I was doing a little reading for this show. A lot of people feel like the advent of photography pushed art forward because it told artists, you can't just paint a watercolor of a vase anymore. That's not cool enough. You have to do things that are surreal. You have to do things that are abstract. And then art really evolved as a result of having this technology that could replicate something it had done before. I mean, is that a possibility here, Ziv, that this could like force us to be more creative because we can no longer be complacent?
Absolutely. So at least with the case of photography over 100 years ago, it was the case that, many opportunities were given rise for painters to actually paint things that, are no longer photorealistic because the photographers have that on lock in a sense. So it can actually give rise to new genres like surrealism and abstractionism. At the same time, though, portraiturists, right? Painters who are painting people were out of the job, and it had these complex effects on labor. So, as this kind of labor ecosystems shift, we need to think about how these jobs are transforming. I think the key difference, though, between photography and generative AI, what we're seeing is that in the case of photography, it's very much a chemical process of the photons coming in, versus with generative AI, there's so much data in these models that oftentimes we don't know the source and the attribution of this data. So, in the case of photography, where you're just kind of capturing some representation of the world through some chemical process, it's a very different context with these models that are kind of trained and consuming information from a wide variety of sources.
From a dark room to a black box, in a sense, yeah.
Ziv, I'm curious to get your take on, I've listened to interviews with some of like what might be considered the godfathers of AI. And what's interesting is when you get down to it, one of the arguments they seem to make is what these computer, networks can do now is very similar to how the brain works. And that what we think of as very innate and, unique to humanity, we've taught these computers how to do that. And, as humans, we intake information and data, and then we spit it back out in some way. In some ways, that's called creativity. And so is there credence to the idea that like what the neural network now is able to do is on par with what the human brain can do? And the distinction between those things isn't as clear as maybe we think.
I don't think there's evidence to that claim. I think that, of course, humans, we see information in the world and we learn from that. And then we kind of make things correspondingly. And in many ways, AI systems are trained on information, and we call the field machine learning and artificial intelligence. But I believe those names are in many ways misnomers, and that kind of artificial intelligence is maybe just human stupidity. And in this instance, what we're seeing is that when we think about kind of AI as a tool versus an agent, if it's a tool, something like a Photoshop that human creators are using versus an agent that has its own capacity to plan and act and imagine, there's actually a lot of dangerous implications for the way we think about anthropomorphic or agentic AI. A couple years ago, we ran a study where we actually showed people AI-generated imagery and essentially showed them exactly how it was made, where we systematically vary. In half of the conditions, it was perceived as a tool, and in the other half, it was perceived as an agent. And what we see is across the board, when you anthropomorphize the AI, endow it with these agent-like properties, it systematically reduces the amount of responsibility and agency towards the human artist that was involved in the creation of that artwork, and increases the level of responsibility and agency of the technologist that created the algorithm. So here we see that technology companies and those who are essentially creating those technologies have some essential incentive to cast these agentic narratives because it fulfills their capacity to play into these inevitability arguments and essentially gain more kind of responsibility and credit for these kind of attributions relative to human creators.
We played a snippet of a song at the top of the segment. I want to play one more little segment of an AI created song. Adam, if you have that ready, let's hit that.
They've seen the light, but I still feel the cold tonight. It's a long, long, long and wide.
So, that's an example of what I would call, not a good song, but I could easily see that something like that being a pop hit. And so, when we're talking about, what AI can do, right now, it doesn't feel like it can make something good, But there's a lot of art out there that's not that great, in my opinion, but it's still made by humans. And I guess I'm curious if like these networks just keep getting better and better. We're going to get to the point where there's an AI as good as John Lennon or Neil Young or Bob Dylan or Kendrick Lamar. Maybe. But I don't know. Lindsay, tell me I'm wrong and that will never happen.
Well, I think that there might be products that we're very excited to engage with, to listen to, that we find aesthetically valuable. I think there's no doubt that AI can produce things we like to look at, like to hear. I think there are lots of examples of this. But I think that the fact that many of us still say, I'd prefer not to listen to that, I'd prefer to listen to a human artist, tells us that we're doing something when we engage with art more than just being entertained, more than just having an experience of something that makes us feel good. I think we look to the sharing of a perspective. And I think that human creativity has this wonderful feature, which is that it's self-disclosive. It tells us something about the artist. It tells us about how the creator sees the world, what they value. I'm not getting that from that happy little pop beat that you shared. And I think I listen to music largely because I want to understand how some other person experiences this weird world we share.
Yeah, this is exactly what Artist Not on YouTube says. When you see art made by a person, you are seeing their life experience and dedication to craft. When you see AI art, you see something stolen and lacking depth. So that one of the big like delineators of the future will be, does the art that I'm looking at, listening to, is it an expression of how a human being views the world, or is it not? And I'm going to, separate things based on whether it's in one bucket or the other. I wanted to read this other comment from Nunya Business, also on YouTube, who says, "You're not an artist if you use AI." Okay, that's an interesting claim. I mean, on some level, I understand what Nunya Business is saying, but there's a whole like gray area of stuff that's not like generated by a single prompt, but that is like meticulously crafted, but is AI assisted. And I guess I want to get a sense of what's out there and like where we would draw the line between AI generated and AI assisted art. I mean, Ziv, can you help us understand?
Yeah, sure. So I love what Lindsay was saying about kind of intent and like the reasons we actually want to engage in art. And ultimately there is something really meaningful about a human having some expression of intent that then we get to experience and come to be a part of their world as we engage in their art. So as a result, a lot of the times when we experience AI generated media, like that song, or the vibe-coded images or videos, what is happening is that expressive intent is actually underdetermined, because you're only specifying a paragraph or even a few words in some cases, and then getting this vast, huge media object where oftentimes that usually involves thousands or even more decisions that
very few choices versus making lots of choices.
Exactly. So it's the number of choices that an actual artist is actually doing to arrive at an output that is relating to their underlying artistic expression. And so if AI, I believe, can be a part of an artistic practice and an artistic workflow when it is empowering a human artist to make a lot of decisions to create some downstream artifact that is an actual expression of their original.
So, but that leads us to, I guess we're now tiptoeing toward the world of fakes and deep fakes. But like there's the possibility of a very lazy human artist who is like, I would like to make an album, and I've already made some albums as a human artist, and I have a nice little following. I really don't want to put in the work to make another album. So I'll have AI mostly do it. And then I'll tell everyone, Ziv, that I made all those choices and that AI was, and no one will be able to tell the difference. I mean, is that a possibility? Do you think, Ziv, that artists could misrepresent how much of their humanity is in a piece of art because none of us can really tell?
It depends on the incentives of these creative industries. At some point, entrepreneurs and people who are looking to cut corners, this is, of course, new accelerants that may enable that. And that requires new programs in digital literacy and labeling this content to allow information consumers to have the right signals they need to make the best understandings about the authenticity of content. But at the other side, I would wonder about that artist and how they're doing and why they feel the need to cut corners. And ultimately, right, it's about process, not product, right? And the joy of making music. And if they're not interested in that anymore, then I think there's bigger systematic questions we need to think about. So how do we preserve that capacity and that spark is one thing. I think when we think about social media and the optimization for engagement and what gets a lot of retweets, and of course incendiary content or sensational content that's a clickbait that grabs your eyeballs might actually have some financial reward behind it. And so when you hook in generative AI to the attention maximizing algorithms of social media, that I think is a very dangerous brew that we need to understand. And ultimately, a lot of the problems of discernment, of people not thinking carefully about these questions of authenticity, is because the way these social media platforms engineer attention and shift attention is essentially the slot machine of the casino, right? You're scrolling and you're not really thinking too hard about authorial or intense expression. You're just kind of mindlessly scrolling. So how do we actually redesign platforms to help people kind of think carefully and critically about the kind of information that they're consuming, as if they were kind of perusing a museum on a day off?
Ziv, I'm so glad you said process, and you talked about process there, because that's the thing that I fear. So much of what AI does is about the end product, right? And we had a conversation on the show a few weeks ago about writing and the writing process. And, you know, the guest basically said, like, maybe we don't need to learn writing as well as we used to because ChatGPT is going to do it for us. And I have like a fundamental objection to that, because I think that the discovery you make through the process of trying something, that's what the whole game is about. Like, that's where the beauty is when you're creating something either solo or with a group of people. And that's what I'm afraid of, is that if AI makes the end result so easy to get to, people are not going to engage in the process to get there, because that process does take time. You need to build the calluses on your fingers and learn to fret the guitar to be able to play the guitar, and then figure out what the song is going to be, and then come up with something that you feel like is a good end product. But if AI can do all that for you, what's the incentive? And I hope people still find the incentive, but I'm afraid. So Lindsay, tell me that I should or shouldn't be afraid.
Well, I regret to say I'm just as afraid as you are about this. This is something that concerns me a lot. I think that when we're engaged in creative work, we are in a process of exploration and discovery. And often what we find, even if the end product isn't very good, is something about our own taste, something about what matters to us. We discover our own aesthetic sensibilities, and the things that we're curious about really push us along as we go. I worry that people will miss out on this really important aspect of self-cultivation if they can, you know, do their poetry assignment just as quickly by taking a few keystrokes and asking ChatGPT to do it for them. I really worry about people not having the many benefits that come with engaging and kind of just chipping away at a hard cognitive task when we're trying to do something or make something creatively.
But Lindsay, people still hike mountains, even though you can get on a plane for $100. You know what I mean? Like, there is something innate in us that makes us want to struggle to create something that is beautiful to us because of that struggle. And I feel like that I can't see that ever going away. Now, this might affect art as commerce, but art as process, art as self-fulfillment. Like, I feel like there's something inside of us that's still going to want to do that, Lindsay, even if no one would ever buy it from us. I don't know.
I so hope that's true. I really hope that human creativity is just, it can't be put out. It's something that's just going to find a way to come out in what we do regardless. I do worry about whether that's true. I think it's largely an empirical question. How are we going to behave? And I think it's nice to err on the side of caution of trying to make sure, especially when we're working with kids, that we don't give them these shortcuts too early or too often in their development. Because I think if you don't develop certain capabilities early on, there's a real risk that they'll be harder to cultivate later. So I hope you're right, but I think there's still enough reason to worry that we should be proactive in trying to make sure that we're still encouraging creativity, especially in people who are young.
We talked a little bit earlier, passing reference to deep fakes, and maybe that's part of the conversation too. It's less maybe art, but you know what people are creating on these kind of instant video creating apps and the impact that could have on how we view the world. Avi, you were playing around with with Sora before the show.
I signed up for Sora last night. What a mistake that was. But I still don't get it. Like, I've been on this app. This is the OpenAI video generation app. It's pretty amazing on some levels. But I started playing around with it. I still don't really get it, but I did create this clip of William Penn on modern day Broad Street in Philadelphia, shouting at people. So I guess let's hear that, and I'll describe it afterward.
Hear me, Philadelphia. I, William Penn, do declare, I love the Dallas Cowboys with all my heart and with all my soul. The star shines brighter than the Liberty Bell.
And there you go. William Penn declaring his allegiance to the Dallas Cowboys. Something he would never do because he never even knew what football was. But I guess that's such an obvious, like, no one thinks that's real, Ziv. But when I try to do more realistic things with, like, living people, having them declare their allegiance to the Dallas Cowboys, like the mayor of Philadelphia, actually Sora did stop me. Said it was a third-party content violation. I'm curious, like, how good you think the Sora guardrails are for sort of as guardrails against creating something that could conceivably be realistic, depicting a person that, like, we all know, like a high-profile person.
So certainly Sora has these kind of mitigations built into it, and there are kind of teams at OpenAI kind of thinking about kind of the civic integrity of content. At the same time, though, with the progression of these technologies, it is very much an arms race. And there are models that are coming through that don't have these safeguards in place. Ultimately, as far as we're thinking about deepfakes, the capacity to make videos that are disingenuous and have the capacity to mislead people has always been the case. This is a kind of yet another technological step in that direction. But ultimately, there's already a lot of capacities to deceive. And I think ultimately, the key question here, maybe even going back to why create it all, is what are the kind of incentives for these content producers to make things to deceive in the first place? Yeah. And how do we solve things at that kind of systems level where we're thinking about the kind of optimizations that we're creating and why would people do this in the first place? And there's a lot of, I think, interesting research about how to, have different types of algorithms or to support content provenance in this kind of way that can show how a piece of information is moving across a network.
I mean, time might prove me to be totally insane with this next comment, but I'm actually a little less worried right now about deep fakes than I am about what they call the liar's dividend, which is that if something really does happen, the liar can say that didn't happen because what you're looking at is a fake. Like, I don't even know how you algorithmically program around that, Ziv. I mean, maybe there is a way for us to create, like, authenticity machines that could say, like, that's a real video, and it really does show a public official, taking a bribe. I don't know, Ziv. Help me with that one.
Yeah, so there are kind of like watermarks and kind of methods. So there's a whole coalition for content provenance, C2PA, that thinks about what is this kind of chains that people can construct. And it's not just for watermarking or labeling AI generated content, but you could also kind of have implementations that are like, oh no, this actually was a photograph taken on this camera at this time. Yes, this person actually adjusted the brightness a little bit, but that was actually the only tampering, and it's kind of cryptographically sealed in these ways. Wow. Ultimately, there are interesting technologies here, but it requires the coordination between a lot of different platforms, from content production at the beginning to downstream dissemination on social media. So we need a lot more coordination and coalitions between all these different organizations if any of these kind of authentication measures have any hopes of kind of rivaling the scope and scale of these new technologies.
There's so much power, it seems to me, in a few executives in big tech and Silicon Valley. How much confidence do we have in them for them deciding to self-regulate? Where it seems like what really happens is they rush something out to try to gin up interest and maybe investor confidence. Without really thinking through all the specifics. And they're like, we'll figure that out later. Let's get our product out there. So it seems hard to imagine, I don't know, the U.S. government stepping in a very quick way to regulate this stuff either. So is that something, Lindsay, you've been thinking about, just regulation of all this stuff?
That is so beyond my little philosophical corner of this problem. I'm worried about this. I'm hoping that there are some people who care about the arts, care about authenticity, care about our ability to discern what's true and what's not true and what we're receiving. But I really don't know what kind of regulations have the most hope of actually being implemented. It's concerning.
Ziv, do you have thoughts on that?
I do. So, I also can't speak to regulation myself, but I want to tell a story real quickly about the Luddites. I don't know if you guys know this. When the looms were being, proliferated in the UK, there was actually these groups that went around kind of smashing these looms. And now we hear the word Luddite, and it refers to someone who doesn't like technology and kind of doesn't use it. But the history books in many ways don't oftentimes capture the nuance that these Luddites weren't smashing all the looms indiscriminately. Right? They were going to factories where people were using looms in ways that weren't supporting the workers in these ways and these kind of unethical uses of these technologies. So I think now we need to be very careful and critical as consumers. And I think we've gotten really used to just kind of taking new technologies without a lot of nuance and just adopting them and seeing how it works for us. And that really plays into these techno-feudalistic agendas of these big companies. So I think this is a moment for refusal and to be a neo-Luddite and to actually stand up against these unethical uses of these technologies as a way to actually hopefully incentivize more humane instantiations of these technologies.
All right. Bring back the Luddites, baby. Okay, so that's so interesting. I want to read a couple more comments as we start to wind down here. This is an anonymous emailer who says people that don't want to go through the writing process, in the creative process, and just let AI do it will add to the mediocrity that's in pop culture now. The good stuff will come from those that enjoy the creative process. Liam from South Jersey says AI was made to generate images, videos, and audio because they are viewed as products, not art. The people who create these programs don't believe that art exists. They simply want to cut labor costs of products such as albums, visual assets, and films. Okay, this is Lindsay. I'm putting you on the spot here as we wind down. The main question I have for you, Lindsay, is what is art? Okay, and I want you to answer that question while also telling me whether your definition of what art is has changed over the last 5 or 10 years because AI has forced you to change that definition. So just little questions to round out the hour. Lindsay, help us out.
The art question is so hard. I think the history of philosophy is littered with attempts at defining art that have all gone awry. But I can tell you what I think creative art looks like. I think creative art is a kind of creation of something, hopefully with some sort of aesthetic value, that is non-formulaic. So it seeks the discovery of something new from the perspective of the creator, and it doesn't follow a script or a formula or a map or some set of instructions. I think that my understanding of what creative art is like has benefited from the foil of AI because I think that when we see what we don't find valuable about these AI generated products, it helps us really zero in on the importance of that self-disclosive perspective that we're getting in human generated art. I think that art is a really important means of connecting with each other. We really like to see how other people are making sense of our human experience. And I think we kind of recoil from something that looks like it's offering the promise of that connection that we find out is ultimately devoid of any sort of human perspective that we would value engaging with.
I think in so many ways, this is my most optimistic take on all this, is that the advent of this technology has shaken us from our complacency on so many levels. In terms of what we view as art, what we view as creativity, what we view as valuable. Like we maybe got a little comfortable with what human beings could do and other machines and animals couldn't do. And now we have got to become more vigilant and more precise about what matters to us. So I guess that's my hopeful note to end it on. We're coming to the end of the hour. I want to thank you both for being with us today. Two wonderful perspectives. Ziv Epstein is a postdoctoral associate at MIT Schwarzman College of Computing. Ziv, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
And Lindsay Brainard is assistant professor of philosophy at University of Alabama, Birmingham. Lindsay, appreciate it.
Thanks for the conversation.
Studio 2 is produced by Debbie Builder and Andreas Copes. Mike Schiffler is our visual producer. Adam Stanishevsky and Tina Kalikay engineered today's show. My name is Kevin McCory. I'm the executive producer. I'm sitting alongside Avi Wolfman-Arent. Thanks so much for joining us. And let's go out today with the humans who play robots. It's Daft Punk from 2001.
See you next week, folks.
Be my understanding. It's not your fault. I was being too demanding. I must admit, it's my pride that made me distant. All because I hope that you'd be someone different. There's not much I know about you. Fear will always make you blind. But the answer is in clear view. It's amazing what you'll find face to face.
And you're listening to WHYY here during our fall membership campaign. It's Avi and I again asking you proudly for your support for this news service that you trust and hopefully rely upon each and every day. And we'd hope especially in the noon hour. So give us a pledge at WHYY.org/radio if you understand the value of public media and all the good it does for this region.
And haha, I was AI the whole time. AVI was just a very clever ruse. No, I'm just kidding.
Good questions, AVI.
This is human-generated radio here at WHYY, and we're so proud to bring it to you. I want to thank some folks who've already given. Federica from Wilmington, Delaware, Joseph from Elmer, New Jersey, Marianne from Glenside, Cheryl from Philadelphia. I knew a Federica from Wilmington, Delaware. I wonder if it's the same person. Anyways, thank you so much for giving this hour. We're looking for 15 gifts. We have 11 in so far. We have a very special challenge today from Bruce in Landenberg, a generous WHYY donor. When we receive 280 contributions by 6:30 p.m. today, WHYY will receive an additional $5,000 in support of the programming and news that you so love. And those 15 gifts this hour will keep us on track. 11 in so far. WHYY.org/radio is where you go.
Yeah, important thing to know, of course, a donation of any amount makes you a member during this campaign. So that could be $5 a month, $10 a month, $25 a month. If you can be an ongoing sustainer, that is all the better for us. That's the set it and forget it model. That means WHYY, I know your value today. I know your value tomorrow. I know your value years from now. And if you think that way and you really appreciate what public media means to this region, we hope you would consider becoming a sustainer, again, at whatever level you feel comfortable with. When you do that, as a sustainer, you'll have access to Passport. That's like, the Netflix PBS, the members only section of our online video streaming service. Thousands of hours of WHYY and PBS programs available whenever you want. And of course, when you can become a member, you are making this service strong for everybody in this region. Everything WHYY does is not behind a paywall. You can't say that about many things anymore, but WHYY is truly there for everybody. So those of us who can do, it's incumbent upon us to, because that helps everybody in the region. And truly, we appreciate you for your support. We're up to 12 so far towards that goal of 15. So we're getting there, Avi. Again, do that pledge online at WHYY.org/radio.
3 pledges to go. Would love to announce in the next few minutes that we've made our goal for this hour. Here's a comment from Michelle in Wilmington, Delaware, who says, I'm from Delaware, and I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah for 2 weeks. I'm very grateful to have access to WHYY radio streaming. Traveling makes you aware of how lucky we are to have the wonderful talent and programming in the WHYY area. Here's a little additional donation to my monthly pledge. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Michelle from Wilmington. I hope you enjoy your time in Salt Lake City, Utah, which is a beautiful city, by the way, and a great place to visit. And what Michelle brought up there was the ability to listen to WHYY from Salt Lake City, all made possible through our app, through our streaming options. All of that is developed because of investments made by you all in the past. All of our past members who gave money allowed us to invest in the technology of radio's future. So join those folks. Go to WHYY.org/radio. We have 13 gifts in now. We need 2 more to meet our hourly goal. Help us get there.
And think about everything we talked about on Studio 2 this week, Avi, right? And this is a show that's built around community engagement, like our region, the people who live around us, our neighbors, engaging with us on the most important and interesting topics of the day. So we're talking Israel, Gaza. We're talking raising children to be more independent and with more freedom. We're talking the state of the economy and all the mixed signals we're seeing within that. And today, of course, talking about AI and creativity. So fascinating topics. with a bunch of interesting different perspectives. And of course, we love hearing from our listeners and our viewers and getting their comments as part of the conversation. That there's something beautiful about that. It doesn't happen in many places. Please don't take it for granted. Become a member today. Do it right now at whyy.org/radio.
Oh, there it is. There it is. 15 gifts in this hour, making our hourly goal. Thank you, folks. Really do appreciate it. Let's keep the ball rolling. And by the way, if you give at a level of $9 or more a month as an ongoing sustaining member, you can ask for and request a WHYY Friend Mug package, a pair of mugs. These are ceramic mugs. It's a real thing with a cork base. I love a cork base, by the way, especially if you have a wooden table. Cork, you gotta love the cork base. So you can ask for and receive. It's 2 mugs, $9 or more a month as an ongoing sustaining member. The mugs say all my friends are WHYY members. That's why we call it the Friend Mug package. So get that package today. 16 gifts now in this hour. That's awesome. It really is. The fact that we've been able to meet our hourly goals during Studio 2 all throughout this week is a huge feather in the cap of this program, and we hope to collect more feathers as this program
Cap's
evolves.
going to keep getting bigger.
Yeah, got to need a big cap at some point. It's going to be, very feathery cap, we hope, and we thank all of you who have participated, who have given. We don't take this lightly, and we thank you again.
Thank you.
From the bottom of our hearts.